YellowTelescope's YellowTelecast, the best practices for the best practices, providing the medical industry's best practices to the medical industry's best practices since 2008. Are you a doctor? Do you work for a doctor? Do you want to earn more, be more efficient, retain your team, hire for success, or just want to have a better lifestyle? I bet you do. What should you expect from the podcast? A lighthearted, casual, fun, hopefully funny, informative, impactful, well-founded look at the medical industry from a pair of a passionate, competent, confident, experienced, talented, questionably good-looking, unquestionably good-looking industry leaders, men of the Renaissance, if you will, and even if you won't, who enjoy Scotch whiskey, world travel, music, single malt Scotch whiskey, fine dining, not fine dining, family, art, and Ryan bourbon whiskeys while implementing intensive training and expert staffing, resulting in unparalleled growth. Listen to the podcast, and for more on how Yellow Telescope can help you grow, visit YellowTelescope.com for upcoming events, published articles, recorded speeches, past issues of our complimentary email newsletter, testimonials, and more.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to the Yellow Telescope YellowTelecast, Best Practices for the Best Practices podcast. How are you, Edward?
Doing well to quite well. Thanks for asking, and yourself.
The same.
Yes.
Doing great.
Yes.
Great. It's been a busy few months, thus the lack of podcasts.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm right there with you. You know, it's just only when we can actually find the time to sit down in a beautiful resort, which isn't really all that often for us, but here we are.
We're here. We're scoping out the next Yellow Telescope Seminar, and we realize that we have not taken time to teach and coach those who wish to listen to us. Fantastic medical doctors, med spa owners, and their teams on how to run a better practice. So we're back.
That's right. From whence we came.
Well, I was going to say, for those of you in YouTube land, you notice that we are speaking directly into these beautiful yellow foam microphones.
That's right. The Yellow Telemic.
And for those of you guys in kind of podcast land, we're holding yellow microphones, and it's spectacular. There's just one issue with them. Well, there's more than one issue with them.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to play, and now that I'm actually, sort of seeing them in the video, I'm not too sure.
They look ridiculous. And also, we're not recording into them.
Yeah, we got the wireless. So
they do work. We're back to wireless. Here they are. Now, I actually, for those of you guys in YouTube land can see this, I am wearing what they always say is the very best outfit for anything that's going to be on television or similar, which is a multicolored striped shirt.
Hey, at least you went vertical stripes.
That's right.
The horizontal
slimming.
Is very unflattering.
That's
right. Sometimes
right.
nautical.
Well, here at the resort, we're eating great food, so we need something slimming. We are recording this actually from our very next Yellow Telescope Seminar location, which we're here this weekend to scope out, the Boca Raton.
That's right. The fabulous The Boca Raton.
The fabulous The Boca Raton. So it's literally not called Boca Raton Resort or the Boca Raton Resort. It's just called
The Boca Raton.
It's just called The Boca Raton. It's thebocaraton.com, and that's the whole vibe. I'm not sure what to make of it, but that's what we're dealing with here. So it's lovely. They just underwent a $300 million renovation as they get ready to celebrate their centennial. It's their 99th year.
That's right.
We'll be celebrating with them here in September 25th through 28th for the Yellow Telescope Seminar, of which we already have 200-300 people already signed up for the event.
Yeah, I think over 300 at this point, but
it's going to be our 15th anniversary.
Wild. I can't believe it's been that long. Also, congratulations and cheers to your 11th year of podcasting.
Thank you. We started this podcast in 2014. We haven't done years' worths of podcasts every year, but we've been doing podcasts for years.
Yeah, we can absolutely say that we're in our 11th year consistently recording a podcast every 1 month to 1 year.
That's exactly right. And for those of you guys who are listening for maybe the first time or just not in a while, we're going to dive in on some topics today, which include sort of the topic of, have I at least, or am I at least, have I at least done this, am I at least doing that, the bare minimums to running a successful business.
Yep.
And we're going to frame that a little bit with some State of the Union, kind of what's been happening since 2020 through 2025 as we record this around mid-year. And what you can take back to your practice in terms of actionable steps. But before we ever get into that stuff, the very first thing that we do is on every podcast, open up a new bottle of fine whiskey.
Indeed. And I'm particularly chuffed, as my wife would say, with this particular expression, actually the two that we have here, sort of special numbers. You've actually got first here the Nashville Barrel Company MBA. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this one, Jon?
Well, I'm going to go to stage left here to my direct frame so you can take a little gander at that bad boy. But this is the NBC MBA. So for those of you guys who are bourbon aficionados or rye aficionados, and we like basically all things whiskey, from your single malts to your bourbons and ryes and so forth, this is something that we actually hand selected and then was barreled or bottled for us from the barrel on a visit to Nashville. So we went with a bunch of friends and we went to an amazing place called NBC, Nashville Barrel Company. Hello to the ownership. Hope you guys are doing great. And we basically get to taste a whole bunch of different barrels, and then you buy the whole barrel, typically anywhere between probably 100 and 225, 240 bottles based on what's left after the angel share evaporates. And we had so much fun, we bought 2.
Yeah.
So the first one that we're pouring right now, and just for fun, if you go ahead and hire us for our consulting program anytime in the next 8 months before the end of 2025 and mention this podcast, we're going to be mailing one of these to you at no additional cost while supplies last.
That's correct. And also, there's a personal touch here. Not only were they hand selected by our executive team members right here sitting at this table, but also hand dipped. John Hoffenberg's actually hand dipped waxed.
That's right. So this bottle, for those of you in YouTube land, is hand dipped in black and pink wax. And this one is called the MBA, which stands for Messi, Busquets, Alba. For any of you who are big soccer fans, like my son and I are, we love Inter Miami, which consists of a lot of the very greatest players to ever play on Barcelona, even though we're kind of Real Madrid fans. And so on the back of it, we printed some beautiful labels with Messi, the greatest soccer player of all time, thus representing some of the best whiskey of all time.
Arguably.
And then a couple of other top players, Busquets and Alba, for those of you guys who are hardcore. So it's fantastic stuff. This is a 7-year bourbon. It is good stuff. It is rocket fuel cask strength at 61%, and just the very traditional cherries, beautiful vanillas, beautiful bourbon notes that you would get from any high quality bourbon. And this stuff is about as good as it gets for me. Cheers.
Indeed.
It tastes like the 15th year of the YT seminar and the 11th year of the podcast.
Successful 2026.
Yeah. A little bit later, we're opening one more bottle for those of you guys who can see it, which is the 11, which is named such because it is the 11-year-old bourbon. This is probably Knobs Creek juice originally, but also aged by National Barrel Company and purchased by us. Only warranted a small number of bottles because a lot of it had evaporated. 11-year bourbon is pretty old stuff. Still rocket fuel at 64%. That's why we have these bottles of water here to pour a little bit in because it is strong. This is great if you like cinnamon, and also let me know if you want one of these in addition or instead of the 7-year because this stuff is costly nectar. Rather rare stuff, and as good as I like it, more than the Pappies and so on that are out there for God knows how much money per
And
bottle.
even more on brand with the yellow wax.
Yellow wax for YellowTelescope, the 11-year-old YT bottle.
That's right.
All right, well, that's how we should probably end the podcast. That was great. A little nice whiskey, and this
great.
is the beautiful views of Boca Raton and the Intracoastal Waterway. The oceans are nearby, within a few blocks, but I guess we should probably not end it there.
Yeah, we should probably teach something actionable, I hope.
Sure.
So we've been talking, of course, with so many practices over the years, and it's what a few years it's been, huh? COVID actually seems like a lifetime ago, and yet it was only half a decade ago. You believe that? So we're well on our way to 2030, and obviously things are going to continue to ebb and flow as they always do. But I find it so interesting to see the trends that sort of emerge over time and where we do see some consistency. Now, of course, we're not the great prognosticators. We can't predict the future, but we can at least look to the past and try to help us inform what we're going to do as we do go forward. And it's interesting because, there was a ton of success in 2021. Of course, there was some really nice momentum. A lot of people felt they were kind of flush with cash with their stimulus, and they had downtime, and there was all this pent-up
Coming out of that
demands.
2020 shutdown, and people were still staying home a little bit, but had money.
Exactly. And then, of course, things went into 2022, and it was still very good, but, definitely the growth started to slow a little bit, some of that uncertainty, and people started spending money differently, right, and kind of going out in different ways. And 2023 is when we first started noticing a more palpable sort of pullback, if you will, largely with search volumes actually dropping, of course, year over year. And we started hearing more from our clients about some concerns and fears about, hey, the halcyon days are behind us kind of thing.
Excellent use of halcyon. That's excellent. Excellent. I really love it. And yeah, I think that's exactly right, which is to say that at any given time, we meet doctors that are relatively new to practice or that were just lucky enough to open in 2009, 2010, where every year, respectively, after that 08, 09 crash, just kind of grew a little bit every year. Some were big growth years, some were small, and they started to say things like, we grow organically. In other words, it's automatic. Now, to me, that's selling the doctor short.
Right.
So I'm like, actually, you did a whole lot of hard work to do that. It doesn't happen automatically. Some of your friends did go out of business. Some of them did join academia. Some of them did have to take call to survive. But yes, more of them were successful in part because the rising tide carried all ships. But really, there were a lot of doctors that didn't have a really bad year for 15 years because the economy actually got from rock bottom to a little better each year until that kind of 2022 zone. I think that's right. What's interesting is I call it the tail of the lizard, which we apply to a lot of different scenarios. One of them is with our doctors, we really work hard to get booked out in most specialties: plastics, oculoplastics, facial plastics, cosmetic derm, even if we can get treatments booked out into the summer as far as we can. You know, right now as we're recording, it's early May, but if we can get someone booked out through June, July, or some of our busier practices, August, September, the end of the year, that tail of the lizard kind of is already booked, and so the summer slowdown isn't felt. And so it's a natural progression in most markets most of the time, not all markets all the time, where there's this tendency to have a summer slowdown if you're in aesthetics or cash pay anything. In the sense of the years passing, the reality is most people are like, 2022 was amazing. I'm like, well, it really wasn't amazing. 2021 was amazing, but you kind of coasted. You know, that tail of your lizard kind of just kept cranking, so you still had your best year ever, despite a slowing market, despite, as you said, a search volume online for aesthetic procedures and so forth being down. So it kind of frames, I think, where we were going at 23, 24.
Right, and then it was interesting because even just last summer, we started hearing a lot about how the sky was falling. And how, my goodness, you know, it's an election year and there's so much uncertainty and people don't know what to do, and you know, things are way down. And of course, we hear this often, and we will be the first to recognize and discuss when things are actually, based on the deep dive into data, that they are down. But what we find by and large is that they were just kind of a little less up for the most part. And then, you know, on top of that, it just started to really reinforce that there wasn't really any longer any margin for sort of any exception to the very best practices, particularly when it comes to your sales, your marketing, your team culture, etc.
Right, this need to sort of tighten up and become near errorless when before you kind of got away with more errors. And it's funny, you know, we actually like a lot of the other consultants that are in the industry, and I think a lot of them have a lot to offer. But what we do is, I think, a little bit unique and different. We're a little bit blue ocean. I always say, if you want us, you probably don't want them. If you want them, you may not need us or want us. But one of the things that we started to see even about 2 years ago in mid-2023 is we understand what's going to happen, folks. The economy's dropping. Watch out. We can talk with you and consult with you about how to cut costs, do layoffs, lower expenses, cut your marketing, be more careful, and still survive. And if that speaks to you, which I think naturally it does to anyone who's in a moment of fear, because we're human beings, if it continues to speak with you, don't call Yellow Telescope, because that's not really our MO. Now, we're realistic. There could be some horrible Great Depression at some point. We'll have to make adjustments. But what we saw was our average client having our best year ever, 2023. We then had our average client having their best year ever in 2024. We're now through May of 2025, and by a wide margin, our average client's having their best year ever. So this isn't because we're perfect or the coaching's perfect or that every client grows. That's not the case. There are clients that haven't grown or are struggling in various ways. But the vast majority every year, because we're able to work with them to build a practice that takes market share during ugly times and then doubles down on good times and creates more of that exponential growth when other people are dying during bad times and kind of growing a little bit during good times. And so we want to talk, I guess, a little bit this week about you know, knowing that 2025 actually for our clients is going really, really well. And if it's not going well for you, definitely reach out. We should talk about that. And we're not immediate turnaround artists who tomorrow will get you 1 million leads, but we should probably talk and see what we can do to tighten up your processes so you can take market share, get on the right path. But if you're doing okay, you're doing decent, you're growing a little bit, you're not doing as well as you want, what are the core kind of spokes on that wheel? What are the 3 pillars? And then, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, what are the things you should be looking at to take back to your practice after listening to this podcast are that you can go to your team and say, are we at least, and have I at least, you know, kind of along those lines.
Right. And, you know, there's we talked about certain concepts over the years, one of which is what we refer to as sort of the marketing ladder, if you will, and looking at how you should be investing in what order and how much in different aspects of the practice, right? And in some ways, I actually think that it's a bit of an analogy as well, and there's parallels to sort of the spokes of the practice wheel, because at the end of the day, the foundation of your marketing actually is your salesperson and the process that they are following, or salespeople, depending on.
Unless you're on day one of the business, you got a certain amount of business coming in already, and if you're not ringing the rag on that, you're not efficient, then why are you even worrying about spending a whole bunch more money on marketing?
Exactly. And it's interesting because this is, I think, will be salient for people at any level in the practice, and even people that are at the very highest level, because we talk to a lot of practices, not just you and I, of course, but throughout our entire consulting team, largely across North America and several international practices as well, where we are talking to patient care coordinators who are booking dozens or hundreds of consultations in a row. And then even at a different level where we have practices who are almost exclusively pre-booking, where the doctor's not only going in to see a consultation to say, well, I know they're going to book if they're a good candidate, and as long as I just do my normal good job, that they're going to book, well. Right? But where they're going in to see consultations that have already reserved the date for a procedure with them, even though they haven't even met them yet. Now that's, at the other end of the spectrum, and not the average, not the norm, but something that is very possible as you get to that level. But even some of those patient care coordinators, we have to have the conversation with them of, are you at least doing blank? Now, right. Of course, we have our specific sales protocol that we developed over hundreds of practices in the tune of over 2.5 billion in client revenues, we think. So at the same time, there's a lot of nuance to it. It's not hard, it's not complicated, it's actually pretty simple. It's just a process, but there's nuance, obviously, to the types of people that you speak to, et cetera. But are you at least following the steps? Do you at least, first of all, even have a patient care coordinator that is a top level salesperson that you think is phenomenal within your market, the best you could possibly find, even though you're probably paying them a little bit more than you thought you might in that particular position. Right. But
are you saving 10 grand to have someone that's a nice person but really isn't the right fit?
Right. So number one, do you even at least have that person? Do I even have a patient care coordinator? And if I do, at a minimum, is their job really exclusively sales? Are they doing a variety of things? Now, we're not saying that we want somebody who's, that's not my job, obviously. In most practices, they're going to have, whether it's 5, 10, 15, even 30 or 50 employees, you still want people who are going to be ready, willing, and able to do anything that they're asked to do and to pitch in proactively to
if someone's sick, if someone's on vacation, if someone quits, but not every day doing someone else's job.
Exactly. And so are we protecting the time for the salespeople to really just focus on those particular tasks?
Yeah, and I think, we just talked about two little things, do I at least have this? Do I at least have that? And it really speaks to those kind of three spokes. And, I don't know if I talked about it in our last podcast, but I'm a very, very subpar golfer, but I enjoy it. And, the reality is there are just these, do you at least hold the club handle right? You don't have to have the fanciest clubs. You don't have to have the most money. In fact, usually the guys with the old beat up clubs beat everybody with the fancy clubs. Right. But, do you have just the most basic concepts taken care of? Is the club head facing the right way? Do you have a ball that's not a practice ball? Very, very simple things, but a lot of people make these mistakes. And it's, as you said, relatively easy to be okay and even good. It's very, very difficult and nuanced to be elite and great, which is really what we teach our long-term consultants. So you kind of alluded to, where do we want to be? And, our very, very most elite practice right now, one PCC is at, I think, 707 booked in a row. So plastic surgery practice, state of California, 707 people who've walked in the door of scheduled surgery while they're there before they leave, not even with callbacks. That's not done with great closing or amazing sales ability. That's done with process, intelligence, relationship building, education, preparation. It's process, process, process. Now, you never have to be that good, but what have I at least done? And I guess you kind of talked about the core spoke, which is the sales spoke, right? And to me, there's kind of the two others, which is the medical spoke. Obviously, we need to have doctors and practitioners creating good outcomes, treating people well, safe, excellent, avoiding the lawsuits.
Goes without saying.
That's kind of not our topic today, so let's say we check that spoke. The second is the organization and leadership management, which we're touching on here because we just talked about one of those simple things is, do I at least have a patient care coordinator that loves sales, that wants to sell, that's not afraid of sales, that can do very basic tasks and follow a process, which is not exactly a big ask for somebody who does it. It's like saying, do you have a doctor that at least enjoys surgery? Do you have a surgeon that doesn't mind seeing blood? Right. It's kind of obvious, but if a doctor's like, I love everything about surgery other than the use of scalpels, blood, and anesthesia, you're not a good fit for that. They might be a really good person. They got to go maybe into sales like me because I don't really want to have the scalpel in my hand, right? So it's really that spoke that we're focused on, and I think we're going to touch on two of those. And so one of the things you're asking yourself immediately, like we just reviewed, is do I have a superb PCC paid appropriately? And I would add to that, do I have the right incentive plan? And if you do have the right incentive plan, assuming legally allowable, every state has different rules, make sure you talk to an attorney, there should be a salesperson that has upside incentive bonuses based on their results. If not, you're losing business. So you have to have a great person in the right seat. You want to protect them, as you said, from doing other work. And are they incentivized to be successful? What else would you say fits into these questions that someone listening to this could ask themselves that are like, do I at least have, or along those lines?
So, of course, I even just think about the front desk, for example. Am I at least listening to the calls on a regular basis? Am I at least doing the things that I need to do to just, number one, hold them accountable to the best practices? And
the simple fact they know you're listening holds accountability.
Exactly. And then also, am I actually providing some positive reinforcement for the things that are going right, the things that I hear them doing that are great on the phone? And then also, am I providing consistent constructive feedback to continue their development within their role? Because we just know that the front desk is so appreciated in some ways. It's a thankless job in so many ways. It's almost kind of an antiquated feeling to be like, well, they're quote unquote just the front desk. They're probably not going to be here that long anyway, and things like
which
that.
Which is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't know if people even know this. A lot of people listening are Reception Scope clientele, but we just celebrated our 70th episode of the Reception Scope webinar because myself, you, Dan, John Barry, Chris Hurlman, many of our employees grew up working side by side with front desk people. And we've trained hundreds, and we really see value in the role. And it is true that for some people it's a stepping stone, and a stepping stone's a good thing. It's okay if you're relatively young and you're working towards something and you take a job that doesn't pay the most in your practice because you're learning and you're getting degrees and you're building, or you want to become the next PCC or manager. There's also people that are extremely high-level front desk people, excellent front desk managers that make a lot of money, but it's the assumption, I think, by so many of these owners that this person's probably going to leave because I'm not paying them that much, and I'm not paying a lot of attention to them, and therefore they're going to be high turnover. I'm like, well, they're high turnover because you're not paying attention to them. And not that you can pay them $400,000 a year, and I think they recognize that, but you could have, again, appropriate incentives, fair pay, an exciting opportunity, have a little TLC. And if you don't have that time because you don't have a manager, or you have a manager but they're busy with other fish to fry, or you're in surgery all week and you got 4 kids, we have webinars. We have YT Mystery Caller. But you have to pay attention to them. So do I at least have someone paying attention to the work that's being done? And it goes for patient coordinators too. One of the things that you mentioned, which may slip through the cracks if I don't re-highlight it, is these patient care coordinators, even the ones we work with that are exceptional, they all wake up every day and work their tails off. They all want to get success. They're being paid bonuses in most cases. They want to crush every record ever. But they're human beings. And for the same reason that for me to get better at golf, I need an instructor. For me to be in best shape ever, I need to have a trainer. You have to have coaches and business people. People say, well, John, how come you have such a high repeat sign-up rate, knowing that your agreements for your consulting are relatively long, work with most clients 3 to 6 years, and they say, but you have a high renewal rate, like what could you possibly have to teach? I'm like, well, first of all, there's a lot more to teach. But second, even if there wasn't, there's a level of accountability. Like, can you imagine running a business, getting a manager in there, completely revolutionize your practice, you grow by $6 million a year, and then you said, thanks so much, manager, you did great, and you're fired. We're done. Yeah, we already did it. We did it. There's nothing else that'll ever be needed. Well, no, there's always management needed. There's always hiring. There's always training. There's always staffing. So do I have the best PCCs? Do I have training and oversight? What else?
Yeah. So then I also think about even just from a marketing standpoint, right? Has my website been completely redeveloped from the ground up in the last 3 to 5 years? And not just, with a templated website or just like a refresh or a facelift, but actually completely custom coded from scratch with brand new photos, brand new videography, and have I paid attention to designing that website to not only look beautiful and have a strong representation of my brand and build some value and some differentiation between the competition in the area, but also is it designed to convert so that we are actually getting people who are visiting the website to spend a little bit of time, even just another 10, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, to get them to the point where they're interested in submitting their contact information to be reached out to.
Yeah. And so much of this is not meant to be the most complex information. We have podcasts sometimes we're really talking about a really deep sales topic or management topic, and some of this is a little deeper and some of it's a little bit more surface. But one of the things I definitely noticed was a lot of people redoing their websites in 2019, 2020. Naturally, everybody pulled back at the end of 2020 until they knew the world wasn't going to end. And then just kind of time slipped into the future a little bit. And business was fairly good, like we talked about, through 2022. But then when things start feeling a little bit bad, what do? We pull back again, just like we did during a pandemic. The difference was one time we thought the world was going to end and we closed down everything and we had no school. This time, we had the stock market dip a little bit for a couple months each year. This time we had an election, which, by the way, I've now been through 4 or 5 elections, and every election, 50% of America hates whoever's elected and or loves them, you know, whatever you want to look at it, frame it positively. And, you know, it's Trump, then Biden, then Trump, and before that it was Clinton and Bush, and it was, you know, it goes back and forth. And, you know, but usually we come out of everything okay, and usually the economy goes fine afterwards in most cases. And there's all kinds of optic things. There's wars, there's tariffs, there's taxes, there's votes, there's, you know, all kinds of mayhem. And it does create vicissitudes, it does create kind of challenges, but we know the arc, as I always say, of the mountain climb bends towards the top of Kilimanjaro, even if there's these peaks and valleys as we go. So during these moments when things are a little bit worse, we've talked in other podcasts about not, you know, cutting all of your profit centers and really focusing on cutting cost centers and reinvesting in things that are working even during lean times. But in this moment, one of the other side effects of that is we tend to focus just on cutting when business doesn't feel good, even if it is good. And that just creates a downward spiral and a self-fulfilling prophecy. What we should be thinking about is maybe not spending tons and tons and not going overboard, being prudent, but also just saying process. Is this spoke on my wheel exceptional? And if it's not exceptional, have I at least? Right?
And it actually makes me think about, you know, when you think, are we even tracking the data, right? I know that you had an article published not that long ago about the deep dives into data and how we
April or May of this last year. It's been a year.
Yeah, wow, it's wild.
Yeah, amazing.
Time flies.
PSP.
So either way.
Deep dives into data. Check it out. It's okay.
There's a lot of feelings that we often have, right? And a lot of the things that we think about are feelings. And it's natural for us. It's how our brains process information as it's coming at us. We're all flooded with way more information than we could ever possibly actually take in or actually, you know, absorb. And so we have to focus on the data. So when we think about, you know, the website, yes, it does need to be done every 3 to 5 years, just even to remain competitive, obviously, and so that Google's algorithm smiles nicely upon you. Because if you're not doing that, well, guess what? Your competitors probably are, and so you got to do it to keep up. But also, are you even tracking the leads that are actually coming in? Are we tracking how many attempts are being made to each of those conversions, each of those leads that are coming in? And are we tracking how many people we're reaching out of those attempts? Are we tracking how many people are actually being converted to consultation? Are we tracking how many consults are actually being converted to procedures, either surgical, non-surgical, whatever?
How much time does it take to simply look at a very basic funnel through your manager or through yourself once a month? We just talked about the reality that you likely, if you're not getting 5 to 10% overall conversion from your website, and you're not seeing growing organic unique visitors, you're not seeing improved conversion rate and time on site, probably need a new website. And we're seeing an influx right around here, January, February, March of 2025. We've probably signed more deals for our SEO oversight group to assist them overseeing new websites than we did probably in the last year before that. So you can see that people are kind of saying, yeah, I think it's kind of time. But that's top of funnel. And then how hard is it for you to just pull the trigger on an appropriate website that's dripping with quality, with a really, really great team? Connect with us if you need someone. As always, we make affiliate fees if we refer them to you, but they're going to be great teams. And then from there, how hard is it for you to simply have yourself or someone run a few reports a month of all the basic steps you took? Even if you're not yellow telescoped, even if you can't book 80, 90, 95%, or even 70% same day, even if you're not ready to hire on our processes, even if you're not ready to come to the annual seminar for some crazy reason, which you definitely come, these are not things that are like unknown. And sometimes it's just a simple podcast. So we teach this to actually the receptionists on Reception Scope. They love the guest speakers. They love the authors. They love the cool, new, interesting, fun stuff. Sometimes they'll say, when we teach them how to answer the phone well and how to make a proper call transfer, I know that, I've heard that. Then we go back and listen to their call and they're doing none of it, or only some of it. We're like, well, I know that it's not stuff you haven't heard, but it's stuff you're not doing. And as a doctor and owner, you might say, well, I'm aware that I could track data. I'm like, but you're not. So this podcast, your wake-up call, we might just make you $100,000 this next year.
Right. And also, are we at least, I think about reports. I was actually talking to a practice literally yesterday about, their system, and they're actually thinking about switching their EMR CRM, software, practice management software. They're asking about that, and I'm like, we don't, no dog in that fight. There's pros and cons to all of them, obviously. Yeah. And, one of the big things we hear about is reporting within the system. Well, which one is the best reporting? And of course, some are way too detailed, and some, practices find it super annoying. They're like, there's 1,000
just stop doing it
options.
because it's too complex.
I can't do it. And then others, find the reporting's really great. But at the same time, it's not just the format of the report that's coming out, but as we say, any report's only as good as the data that was put in, right? Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
A lot of the offices don't track why you heard about how you heard about the practice, and so then it spits out a report saying you're not getting any leads from this source. Then you turn off the source and it was making you money.
So then, at a minimum, am I at least talking to my patient care coordinator about how many leads they got last week? And how many of them that they actually reached? And am I at least going into the system and spot checking? Forget about a report of the last 12 years or 12 months or 12
600
weeks.
Leads that were underserved. Can we at least follow up with the people that called this week within an hour or less, unless we're stuck in a consult? Can we get back to everybody same day? Is that something at least we could do? If we don't reach them, can we at least try them a second time? Now, our top PCCs will follow up 8 to 10 weeks in a polite and pleasant manner and get results others don't. But we can at least make sure we don't have leads slip through the cracks. Can you at least have someone on your team look at your social media and reply to people who actually comment on your posts? Just to say thank you, or to some of them are like, I'm interested in a breast augmentation.
Like
nothing. And then someone from our office likes it 5 days later.
Yeah.
Why even put the social media up if you're not at least? And if the answer is I can't, or I haven't figured out how to, then it's time to outsource. And it's a plug for us at some levels, but you don't have to use us. Find somebody, hire a local intern from the university, but find someone who can do these very, very basic things. There's so much simple stuff. And I'd also challenge everybody listening. We're not going to sit here for 2 hours listing things that you already know, but I do think you can just sit here at the end of this podcast, take out a pen and paper, and write down, can I at least, and just write down 10 things that are pretty simple that you can do this Monday that you're not doing right now.
Yep. Can
I at least get an email newsletter out once a month? That's something simple, takes a few paragraphs. If not, for a few $100s a month, we'll do it for you. Yeah. Can I at least have some option for text marketing? If you have no ability to send an email blast by text or to communicate people by text, you need to be in touch with us. Can I at least make sure my website is current and has a good conversion rate by talking to my web team? These are very, very basic things. Can I at least make sure I have one item on the calendar for the next 3 months that's fun with my team? We're actually next week going to do, I got a package of art in the mail. I don't know what we're doing, but I think we're painting and drawing with our people from all over the country. Our whole team, we're going to do like a paint and sip or something. I don't know what the heck it is, but we're doing something. And that's something we can at least do. We can't always fly in together. I don't have my whole team here in beautiful Boca, but we can at least do that.
Yeah, exactly. Am I at least sitting down with my team on a relatively regular basis, right? Yeah. Now, am I actually making my team meetings happen? Am I personally joining them on the team? And this goes for everybody in the practice, whether it's the ownership, management, coordinators, front desk, techs, medical assistants, anybody, right? Am I at least getting to the meeting? Am I contributing ideas to the meeting if I don't like the meetings?
Yeah. Do I have an annual planning meeting on the calendar for November or December? Who knows if it's going to be good? Who knows what the plan's going to be? Can I email the group with a date and put it on the calendar? Ours is in early December, I think. We already booked it a year ago. So in summary, challenge yourself that way. In order to thrive if the economy gets bad, and it's not bad right now. A lot of you guys listening to this, you've opened since after 2009. And I didn't live through the Great Depression, but I've lived through the 03 crash, the 08-09 crash, the pandemic, and then some of these last couple big stock market crashes around the elections the last couple times. If you haven't lived through a bad economic time, only thing I can assure you is it's coming. But I don't buy that it's this year or next year. I didn't buy that it was last year or the year before. And nobody can really predict or know. You can just kind of speculate and have some sort of educated guess. So maybe you're right 70, 80% of the time.
Right.
So you got to run the year-round business. But if nothing else, make sure you've at least done those things. And if you actually want to grow and thrive and have your best years ever during the leaner times, which are going to come and go probably every 2 to 5 years for the rest of your life, for the rest of your practice, then either get your stuff in order and become unbelievably efficient yourself, or contact the people who focus on it. And maybe there's someone else out there, but I think we're kind of blue ocean. There's no place like this place near this place. This must be the place. We call it Yellow Telescope. This is what we do. We're running our own business the same way. I would mention a few positive things. We were just named the 7th year in a row to the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing companies in North America. We were just named again for the 6th time, I think, to the Financial Times Fast 500.
South Florida Business Journal Fast 50.
Yep, that's our 6th time winning. So we're still growing and building. We've had our best year ever every year, and this will be no exception again. But we're in it with you. It's not always easy, but we're working towards it. We're trying to stay efficient during these times so we can really explode out of it when things turn super positive again.
Yep.
What do we have coming up, Ed?
Well, let's see. We've actually got the Vegas Cosmetic Surgery meeting.
The Vegas.
The Vegas.
I think it's got to be our 15th, 14th time going there.
That's right. We got the team heading out there. We've also got,
I'm pouring a little splash of the 11 just to try it. So cinnamony.
That's all right.
Pure cinnamon spice. If you don't like cinnamon, don't drink it.
And then, of course, it's kind of fast forward until the Yellow Telescope Seminar.
Yep, we'll be at American Academy of Facial Plastic Reconstructive
Of course.
Surgery. I think that's 1 week prior.
Yep.
Our meeting is September 25th through 28th at the Boca Raton, which we're here right now in a beautiful suite. It is our 15th anniversary event. I think this is the nicest location we've ever been in. We already have our 2026 location, which will be announced at the event, which is going to be amazing. On the off chance you can't make it this year, make sure you make it in late 2026. There are a couple specials going on at different shows. Contact us if you want to know about any special moments or times. We still have a 5 monthly payment plan that allows you to break it into monthly payments to make it a little easier on the cash flow, whether you really need that or not. And we still offer all the wonderful services through Ice Cream Social Media and SE Oversight. Thank goodness our family and friends, kids and dogs are all healthy and happy. We look forward to connecting with our fabulous clientele and future clientele and friends at the next meeting. Do you have any other thoughts?
Not at all. Thanks for joining us. Cheers to you.
Cheers. Play us out, Matthew. It's like eating a piece of cinnamon gum.
Wow, it really is.
It doesn't just whelm. Oh, overwhelms.
Indeed.
It's nice to be back, buddy.
Good to be back, indeed.